to the Bridge the Gap podcast. Here's your host, Dustin Udke.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Bridge the Gap. Dustin here. We got a slow show tonight. We had some last minute to come up with our guests. It's just going to be me tonight. So A.M.A. style, ask me anything. Feel free to hop over to YouTube. Ask your questions away. I'd love to interact with you guys. Answer your questions. It can be about football. It can be on life. It's literally ask me anything. If you guys don't have questions for me, I get it. If you could hit that like and subscribe, that helps me too. But we'll be talking wild card weekend reactions, divisional round previews, some coaching changes, some other stuff. I want to start off with the fires in LA. So praying for everyone in LA. I've reached out to some of my friends in the industry and some friends that are outside the industry. They're all doing well, but it's just devastating what's happening out in LA. Two YouTubers I really like, Colin and Samir, who've really shaped a lot of my YouTube growth and thought processes. They both lost their houses in this fire, and it's just devastating to see that on people you may know or kind of know or don't know. Either way, it's devastating to see rich, poor, anywhere in between lose their homes. It's devastating. So sending prayers and good vibes. If you can donate, there's plenty of opportunities to do that. Donate, help out those people in LA. Devastating to see. Hoping that they can contain these fires and we don't lose any more houses or lives and that kind of stuff. I wanted to update you guys on where I'm at, what's going on with me. A couple people have asked about the combine this year. As you guys may or may not know, I've gone to the combine the past 2 years with media credentials. Something I really enjoy doing. I've had a great time doing it. Made some really good connections. I won't be going this year. One of my best friends is having a birthday party, and I'm going there, which I'm not supposed to say. It's a surprise. So won't be going to the combine this year. Life happens, and life is more important, and friends are more important than a combine, than football. I still enjoy it. I still think it's a valuable thing. I still plan on going to the draft with media credentials in Green Bay this year. Got all my plans set for that. Obviously, once credentials come out, I'll request those, and hopefully I'll get those again. I won't be at Super Bowl week. I've never done the Super Bowl week. I've had credentials for it, and we've sent other people. It's just not time conducive. Same thing with the Senior Bowl. I would love to go do all those things. I do work a 9 to 5. I do have a wife and kids, so I just can't travel. If this was my full-time job, or maybe I could do Senior Bowl, Super Bowl, combine, draft, all that kind of stuff. But doing this as a side hobby and a side job, and hopefully someday it becomes full-time, I just can't afford and do all those things and be time away from my wife and kid for a side job and a side passion that I really do love. But so no Super Bowl this year, no Senior Bowl, and no combine. But I'm still going to be giving you guys the best coverage I can give, digging into some of these rookies. I've reached out to a bunch of them, trying to get some of them on the pod. Like I had Dylan Lobby last year. I got to interview him. So hopefully we can connect, with a couple rookies, get them on, talk about their experience. We are going to be bringing on some people who are going to the Senior Bowl to talk about some of these rookies, some of the players that maybe you haven't heard of that they like. So we are going to do some rookie coverage. We're going to be talking about lots of other stuff. So I've got Toronto Dave coming on next week to talk about counseling, and he's been very open about his journey through counseling and going to counseling, how it's helped him grow. And I think counseling is very important and a benefit to a lot of people, and I think everyone probably should go to counseling. I think it helps you work through some of the issues, whether that's fear, whether that's anger, whether that's some of the past trauma or hurts. So we'll talk about that next week. And we got some other great guests lined up down the road. I've been reaching out to people left and right, trying to get some really good guests on, some big names I'm trying to reach out to. So trying to pull some strings, see who I can get on the show. But tonight is just going to be A.M.A. style. So if you have a question, if you're watching on YouTube, come on over to, or if you're watching on Twitter, come over to YouTube, drop your question in the chat. You can drop it there on Twitter as well. I'd love to answer your questions. Let's talk about NFL playoffs, wild card weekends. It's not really all that wild. It was very mundane. We only had one good game. I thought all the games went pretty much how I wanted. The big game that I was surprised with was the Chargers game. I was really, I don't want to say disappointed in that. I thought it would be better. I thought the Chargers would put up more of a fight with Houston. Justin Herbert looks bad, and I don't know what it is because I think Justin Herbert is a very good quarterback. So if you don't know, the Chargers lost to Houston 12 out of 32. Pretty much I think all the home teams won except for Washington. But Houston coming out now, I think Houston, I love C.J. Stroud. I think he's a good quarterback. But I thought with their lack of weapons on the receiving game, they had Nico Collins. I thought maybe the Chargers could, contain him. Uh, I expected Lad McConkey to have a good game, and he did. 14 targets, 9 receptions for 197 yards and a touchdown. It just seemed like they couldn't get anything else going. Couldn't run the ball. Dobbins 9 carries for 26 yards. Gus Edwards 7 carries for 22 yards. So they really made them one dimensional and really made it. If it wasn't Lad McConkey, it was nothing. I mean, DJ Chark, Quentin Johnson had 5 targets, couldn't catch a single one of them. It begs the question of what's going to happen with the Chargers in the future. How do they compete? The Chargers have this long history of um, being good but not great, making it to the playoffs, or maybe just missing with Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees back in the day. I think the Chargers need to bring in another big name receiver, whether that's through free agency, so T. Higgins, whether that's through the draft and one of these big names. We'll see. I don't think you can squander Justin Herbert. Now he's still young, and you still have plenty of time. He's only 26. You still probably have at least 10 more years with him. But you want to that window should be 5 years, and you want to keep that open. They probably need a running back in a year or two. So I think the biggest difference. I was surprised with how good Houston looked. Um, CJ Stroud has been not great lately, but he played really well in this game. 33 attempts, 22 completions, 282 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. They made some sloppy mistakes. They had a fumble. He did make the interception. I think there was 2 fumbles in this game. Uh, Houston won. They're going to go up against Kansas City now, and I don't think they can beat Kansas City. So shocker that one. I actually picked LA to win that one. I'm not surprised because I thought that'd be the closest game, and it was not close. Then on Saturday we had Baltimore Pittsburgh. As a Bills fan, I was really hoping Pittsburgh could pull the upset. They could not. So Pittsburgh could not do anything in that game. They looked flat. Again, couldn't run the ball. I mean, Najee Harris, 8 carries for 17 yards. Derrick Henry, 26 carries for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns. Lamar, 16 completions for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns, 15 carries for 81 yards. Baltimore looked like Baltimore. They looked like the team that should be a lot of people's AFC pick to win the Super Bowl. They just should be. With what they can do on offense, I know they don't have a dynamic passing attack, but they have such a dynamic rushing attack that they don't need to have a amazing passing. They just need to have an okay passing attack. Lamar with 21 attempts and 16 completions is good enough when you're running the ball 26 times with Derrick Henry and getting 186 yards and 15 times with Lamar Jackson. I'm really worried about my Bills this week, and we'll talk about that preview coming up, playing them. Buffalo came out, and that game was, I'm nerve-wracked every time I watch a Bills game, especially a playoff game. I thought the Bills had the toughest road because it was going to be Denver, Baltimore, Kansas City to get to the Super Bowl. I like Denver, and I think the future is bright for Denver. Bo Nix is good. Cortland Sutton's good. I think they need a running back. Marvin Mims played well in the last season, or late in the season. Didn't have anything really this past game. They need another receiver. They probably need a tight end. They need another running back. So they need some holes, but I think they can fill them. Sean Payton looks like a good coach still. I like Buffalo. I like that they came out. Josh Allen only had 26 passing attempts. I think if you can keep him under 30, I'm really happy. Definitely under 35. He didn't have to play hero ball. James Cook, 23 carries for 120 yards and a touchdown is amazing. Getting Ty Johnson involved, the receiving game, kind of mixed around. And they kind of had this mindset of everybody eats. Curtis Samuel, 3 targets. Shakir, 6 targets. Coleman, 3 targets. Matt Collins, 2 targets. Amari Cooper, 3 targets. Kincaid, 3 targets. Dawson Knox, 3 targets. That's what I want to see from the Bills. And if they can continue that, I think they have a shot at winning everything, winning the whole shebang. But let's talk about Denver. I think Denver definitely has a bright future. I love what they're doing right now. I just think they have too many holes to fill. I think they had too many to fill to begin with, and I think they're just, um, coming up with it. So I think they're on the come up, and I think they're just in a tough division with obviously Kansas City and with the Chargers. It's just going to be interesting. So we'll see what goes from there. I'm curious to see where they go, what they do in free agency, but I like the Denver. Same thing with the Chargers; they're on the come up. So that division could be stacked for years to come. Next game we had Green Bay and Philly. If you guys don't know, I do live in Wisconsin, so I'm surrounded by a bunch of cheeseheads. This game I thought would be Philly's game. Jordan Love had an elbow issue. Obviously, he played. They lost. Well, it seemed like every receiver. Romeo Dobbs got hurt. I think Jaden Reed got hurt. They're out Christian Watson. The Packers are a good team. They just seem to lack that special something that I don't know how else to describe it. That like one player who can just break a game. Like they just don't have that. When you talk about the Ravens, it's Derrick Henry. When you talk about the Bills, it's Josh Allen. When you talk about Kansas City, it's Patrick Mahomes. When you talk about Houston, it's C.J. Stroud or Nico Collins. When you talk about Washington, it's Jaden Daniels. When you talk about the Rams, it's Puka Nacua. When you talk about Minnesota, it's Jefferson. Green Bay just doesn't have that. I mean, Christian Watson is, yes, he's a big play, but he's like a slightly better version of MVS. He's not like a Jefferson type. Josh Jacobs is good, but he's not a Henry or a Barkley. Jordan Love is good, but he's not a Joe Burrow or a Justin Herbert type, like I'm going to go out and win you games type guy. So they're just missing that special little extra player that could do that. I think that's what's keeping them from getting over the hump. So Philadelphia won. I would love to see Philly make it to the championship. I'd love to see Philly Detroit NFC championship. I'm from Philadelphia. My dad's from Detroit, so I have some ties for both those teams. The only upset we saw, like I guess technically the only upset we saw, Washington Commanders over Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this did not surprise me because I think the Commanders are a good team when it comes to playing the Buccaneers. They have a dynamic quarterback in Jaden Daniels. They have good complement of running backs. Again, not great running backs, but Eckler and Brian Robinson are good enough to keep you honest on defense. Terry McLaurin had a really good game. He's been a surprise player this year. Finished as the wide receiver 7, 117 targets, 82 receptions, 13 touchdowns. I think he's due for some regression next year, but he played really well in this game. 10 targets, 7 receptions, 89 yards, and a touchdown. It was a winnable game for both those teams. Washington won. I think for Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield, I don't know what it was. They ran the ball 17 times with Bucky Irving. He had 77 yards, which isn't bad. I just felt like Baker Mayfield didn't press, or maybe it was the coaches, didn't press the pace and didn't play what I consider Tampa Bay ball. They didn't go out there and, firing passes, left and right, to Mike Evans and McMillan and just kind of this, not really like super fast pace, but this like higher octane. It seemed very bland to me for a Tampa Bay offense. It just seemed like they were playing a real conservative game. It was 23-20, so I guess they were trying to be conservative. It just never felt like they felt comfortable, like they had a lead and they could press. Where we saw a lot of games where teams just, smelt blood in the water and went for it. I never got that feel from Tampa. And then we had the Monday night game, which I was super excited to watch. Was hoping for a really good game. And I tweeted this out that a lot of times when we expect these really good games, we get kind of duds. And we got 27-9, kind of blowout win by the Rams over the Vikings. It goes down to Sam Darnold, who just looked like Sam Darnold. I mean, let's be real. Sam Darnold is a subpar quarterback who had a really good year in a really good system with a really good team. And the Rams came out and were the Rams. They ran the ball well. Kyron had 16 carries. They threw the ball 27 times with Stafford. He completed 19 of them for 209 yards and 2 touchdowns. Puka was great with, nine targets, 5 receptions. Cooper Kupp only had 1, so they did all that without even involving Cooper Kupp. They lost Tyler Higbee, who had 5 receptions. They worked in the tight ends early and often. Higbee got injured that game, but 5 receptions out of 5 targets for 58 yards. Kobe Parkinson came in with 2 receptions for 13 yards on his 2 targets. Dennis Allen had 2 targets, caught 1 for 13 and a touchdown. Minnesota just looked like they bet on the wrong guy. They were banking on Sam Darnold to continue, and I've always said that at some point Sam Darnold turns back into a pumpkin. And he turned back into the pumpkin at the worst time of year for him. And so let's talk about Sam Darnold, because there's all this discourse now of like, and I tweeted that every snap he loses more and more money. I don't think Sam Darnold was worthy of the big contract people were talking about. Yes, he was having a really good year. Yes, it's the best year he's ever had as a pro. 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. His best year as a starter was 2019 with 19 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. The problem was you knew it was all system based because he didn't do it for the Jets, really didn't do it in Carolina, was back up in San Francisco. What changed? It wasn't like Sam Darnold changed. It's not a Baker. I don't even know if Baker Mayfield has changed, but it's not like Sam Darnold also figured it out. The system around him figured out how to use him and minimize some of those weaknesses. So was another team going to pay Sam Darnold big money when they don't have the same system? Like, You can't go, hey, he fits in this system really well, and this system is what made him good, and then go, well, if you take him out of that system, he's going to be just as good, or our system is just as good as that system, is what you're saying. And let's just be real, they're not. Your coaches aren't the same. Your coaches probably Kevin O'Connell is the best quarterback coach, in my opinion, in terms of coaching up players and game planning around a quarterback. Maybe get a Sean McVay, maybe a Ben Johnson in Detroit. We'll always have a Jared Goff. But I just think that there's not many better than Kevin O'Connell. And so if you're the Titans or the Giants, how can you go and sit there and go, yeah, we're going to pay this guy a ton of money and we can recreate what he did in Minnesota when the Jets couldn't do it, Carolina couldn't do it, no one else even wanted to try it. So I don't think he was ever going to get a massive contract. And I've tweeted this out: the supply and demand on quarterbacks is iffy at best. There's 7 teams, maybe 9, that need a quarterback next year. And let me see if I can find my tweets. I replied to Dave Kluge on it because he was talking about it. So let's say you have 7 or 9 teams that need a quarterback next year. Pittsburgh needs one. Giants need one. Jets need one. There it is. Las Vegas needs one. Tennessee probably needs one. New Orleans needs one. Maybe Cleveland. So that puts your demand at 7. You can get it to 9 if you think the Rams and Seattle are going to draft a future guy. But look at the that's demand. Look at the supply for this. Russell Wilson. Now I'm going to list names, and we got to figure out where Sam Darnold fits in this match. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Joe Flacco, Jameis Winston, Sam Darnold, Drew Lock, Mac Jones. If you think Tennessee's like one, Will Levis is probably available in trade. Trey Lance, Daniel Jones. That's 10. And then you have probably 3 to 5 quarterbacks who are available in the draft, who are starters, who are day one starters, right? Your Shedeur Sanders, your whoever else you might like. So let's say you got to get to 9. Is Sam Darnold a top 7 guy in that? I think he's behind Russell Wilson. I think we have a history of Russell Wilson playing really good and playing at a level where he's a capable starter for 2 to 3 years. I think he's behind Justin Fields. Justin Fields played admirably beginning of the season. He played. You can excuse a lot of what happened to him in Chicago based on Chicago. I put him behind 5 quarterbacks. Let's say 4. Let's just be conservative and say 4 rookie quarterbacks who I think will be day one starters because we don't know what they are, right? A rookie quarterback could be CJ Stroud, could be Desmond Ridder, but you just don't know when teams are going to bank on the unknown versus the known. Then it comes down to what else is he? Is he behind Mac Jones? Mac Jones had a really good year this year. He had played decent as a starter in New England, was the backup for Jacksonville, filled in for Trevor Lawrence, had a good run. Not a great one, but a good run. So I put Sam Darnold slightly behind Mac Jones. Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones? I mean, if you're going off history, which I tend to, you're looking at Sam Darnold with 1 good year and Daniel Jones with 1.5, like 1 good year, like his rookie year. So I think they're equal. Drew Lock played, I think, fairly well when he was the starter in Denver. Obviously got shipped off to Seattle. Hasn't had a chance since, but Denver in 2020, they're saying 13 games, 16 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. So really his second year. I think he warranted a shot. He never really got one. So are you willing to go, hey, we don't know what Drew Lock is, but he's been in the league now for 7 years or 6 years? Maybe we give it a shot, see if Drew Lock is something, and we'll get Drew Lock and we'll draft a guy in the 4th round. Maybe. And Trey Lance, I don't think Trey Lance is there, but again, we don't know what Trey Lance is. We've seen very limited tape on Trey Lance. So is Trey Lance better? Maybe. I just don't think the unknown is there. I think we know what Sam Darnold is. We know that he is a 20 touchdown guy in a full season, 25 touchdown guy. And on most teams, unless you get a really good team around a really good coach like you saw in Minnesota, then he's a 35 touchdown. He's still got 12 interceptions. He still has 4 lost fumbles, 8 total fumbles. I mean, he got sacked 48 times, so the line wasn't doing him any help. what we saw in that wild card game was his pocket awareness is non-existent. I mean, he was holding the ball. Even the announcer was like, "Throw the ball, you got to get rid of it." And he's just, and that's what I'm saying. If I have a team that has a suspect offensive line, I take the chance on Justin Fields because I go, "Hey, I know if we get in a spot where if that in that situation, Justin Fields takes off and runs, Sam Darnold is lost back there." The only way I can see Sam Darnold being his own is if he's a bridge quarterback like Jacoby Brissett, where he starts 6 games, half a season behind, fifth quarterback taken in the draft or the third, fourth quarterback taken in the draft. And he gives you a veteran presence. And, if you have a JD McCarthy situation, you can fill in and you're okay. I don't think the Vikings ever expected to win this many games with Sam Darnold. I think they thought once JD got hurt, they were like, okay, this is going to be a down year now. Sam Darnold played really well, and they've been able to do a lot with them, and they made the playoffs, and then they lost. So I wasn't real confident. I don't think Sam Darnold deserves to be a starter next year. It wouldn't surprise me if he is, but I don't project it based on supply and demand, and it definitely would not surprise me if he's not. I just don't know who signs him. Does Tennessee go after him? Is he that much better than Will Levis? So are you going to sign Sam Darnold to a moderately sized contract, even if it's a medium sized contract, versus Will Levis you have on a rookie contract? Why would you just not stick with Will Levis and draft a guy next year? That's where I'm at. Do the Giants go out and take him when they got rid of Daniel Jones, who's just as good? Why not roll with Drew Lock? Are the Jets going to retread Sam Darnold when they couldn't do it with the beginning and Aaron Rodgers still might be there? Or do they go get someone else? Do they go get a Russell Wilson or Justin Fields and maybe they go get Trey Lance? Maybe they draft Shedeur Sanders. I don't know. If I'm one of those teams, I'm looking for the big splash play, not the subpar, safe-ish play in Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold is the safe, hey, we don't have a plan and we couldn't get a guy this year guy. If you're a team drafting in, the teens in the top 5 or, this year, if you were, a team in the teens and you have 5 guys go in the first round, you're like, well, I don't like any of these guys. I don't want the 6th quarterback. Maybe you retread Sam Darnold, or maybe you bring Sam Darnold in if you're Indianapolis to compete with Anthony Richardson. Sure, maybe he wins the job for Richardson. I doubt it, but maybe. I mean, he's a good backup. He has the experience. He's been around on 3 or 4 different teams now. He's learned from a lot of those guys and coaches, and he can bring that in, and the experience helps. I just don't see him as a starter. I never have. So, that's right. This week we've got the divisional round. We got some exciting games. We got Saturday at 3:30 p.m. I guess it's 4:30 Eastern time. Houston, Kansas City. For me, it's Kansas City. That should be a no-brainer win. I think Kansas City being rested is just going to come out and dominate. I can't see a world where Houston really makes that competitive, to be honest with you. I think Houston is a good team. I still believe in CJ Stroud. I just think the injuries have mounted up too much for them. I just don't know. At 7:30 the night game is Washington at Detroit. Again, I love Washington, but I love Detroit more. Detroit is just a team that just should come out and just steamroll Washington. Detroit can beat you everywhere. It's getting Dave Montgomery back. So you have Montgomery and Gibbs. You have Amon St. Brown. You have Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta. Jared Goff is playing really well in a stadium. It's going to be electric. That game, the tickets for that game are outrageous. I saw a tweet that you can go to the other 3 games. You can go to the other 3 wildcard games for cheaper than you can go to that game for ticket prices. It's going to be electric. If Detroit loses that game, I think the air is just going to get let out of all of the NFL because I think everyone wants to see Detroit win. So that's where I'm at in that game. We got the Sunday games. Before we get in there, hey guys, if you're watching, I appreciate tuning in. Hit that like and subscribe. It's an A.M.A, so drop your questions in the chat. I'll answer your questions. It can be football related, life related. Let me know. We'll be back to guest next week. We had a guest cancel, not cancel. I mean, they had something come up last minute, so they can do without. Sunday, we got the Rams at Philadelphia Eagles. This should be the closest. Well, these 2 Sunday games are the closest ones. I think the Rams have potential to be a top offense in the league when everything is clicking. The problem is they just don't click enough for me. Their defense played really well. Matthew Stafford played really well. Puka's obviously great. Cooper Kupp was not involved, and they didn't need him to be. So is he more involved if they need him to be? I still think Philly just has a better team. Saquon Barkley just creates a dynamic on that team where you have to load up the box to try to stop them. And then they have 2 really good receivers, if not they're in contention of best dual wide receivers in the league in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and then you throw in Dallas Goedert with a really good quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who can also run a little bit. There's no weakness on that offense. Really good offensive line. So it's hard to stop the Eagles. So I think the Eagles win. And then obviously the game I think everybody's looking forward to is Baltimore at Buffalo. You guys know I'm a Bills fan. I'm not sure the Bills can beat Baltimore. We lost to them this year already in Baltimore. This one's in Buffalo. The Bills' weakness has always been the run game. And they struggle with not so much interior running, but outside running. And Derrick Henry is really good at that, and so is Lamar. And that's where they're weakest, and that's where they get beat. I mean, we saw it in the game this season. The first play, Derrick Henry breaks off like an 80-some yard run, off tackle, outside run to the right, just goes by everyone. I'm not getting my hopes up as a Bills fan. I think that Baltimore wins it. So then we're looking at Baltimore, Kansas City in the championship. I think Kansas City comes out and wins it, as much as I don't want that to be true. And then you're looking at Detroit, Philadelphia in the NFC championship. I think Detroit can pull that out. I think Detroit can go in and, has it at home. I think can keep pace with Philadelphia and can get the luck of the bounce. I think it's just their year. And KC, Lions, Super Bowl. I think it's going to be, unfortunately, Kansas City. I would love to see the Lions win. I want if the Bills can't win it, I want it to be the Lions. Anybody but Kansas City, but I would love to see Bills. Lions are my two favorite. If I was going to rank the teams left, it would go Bills, Lions, Texans, Eagles. Rams are up there. Kansas, Washington, Baltimore, KC. I think anybody but Baltimore and KC I'd be happy with. I mean, I'd be happy for Lamar if he won a championship. I guess anybody but KC is kind of where I'm at there. He's got 2 MVPs. He should only have 2 MVPs. I think Josh Allen should win the MVP this year. So that's where I'm at with the playoffs. If you guys got questions, hit me up in the chat. I'd love to answer your questions. Let's talk some of this head coaching news. So we saw Mike Vrabel get hired by the Patriots, which seemed to be the foregone conclusion. As soon as they hired Gerard Mayo, it seemed like that's where it was going. I got some flack on Twitter saying that, explain to me why people are hyped on Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel is the Sam Darnold of coaches. He's just okay. He's good. He's not great. He's never going to win you a ton of games. Very much Mike Tomlin. Good coach, good leader of men, but can he get you over the hump? And I don't think he can. And I worry about his ability to scout, draft, and develop young players. And you can say GM all you want. Here's the problem. Mike Vrabel had some parts in drafting Will Levis, some part in drafting Malik Willis, and not developing them. Now, granted, it was limited time, but he did everything he did was with Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill. Yes, they drafted A.J. Brown, but then he had some hand in trading A.J. Brown and replacing him with Treylon Burks. And you can say it was the GM and he didn't agree with that, but you can't be a leader of men if you're not going to lead the GM. And this is what I mean by that. Not that he has sway over the GM, but in a room, they have to talk. It's not like the GM does things without the coach knowing. The GM and coach are talking. If you're a true leader of men, like people say he is, I would say 7 or 8 times out of 10, you're getting your way because you have been able to sway and lead that team in your vision and your persuasiveness of what you want for that organization. If you can't do that, you're not a leader of men. Plain down. I get it. The GM outranks you and can coach you up, but you need to go, hey, this is what I believe, and this is what I'm believing for the team, and this is the vision I have, and this is the guy I want because he fits my system, and make your case. And make a good enough case that the GM goes, okay, 7 or 8 times out of 10. Now, Will Levis, trading A.J. Brown, Malik Willis might be those 3 out of 10 times. It just seems weird that those are 3 out of 10 times. And if you look at their draft history, outside of defensive players, they have not done well drafting. The Titans did not do well drafting players and developing young talent, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So for the Patriots, I love Drake May. I worry about Drake May's development in the future. Can he surround himself with good talent? And you look at again, he had a good scene going when he had Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith left and they fell apart. Can Mike Vrabel surround himself with a good offensive coordinator and a good quarterbacks coach that can continue to develop Drake May? Can they not recruit? Can they, scout and draft and develop young receivers because the ones they have are not great? and they're not there, so they're going to want to change house. Can he stay balanced? I know we had press conference saying, "Oh, we ran the ball because our best players are running back." I don't know if that's true because even the years you had A.J. Brown, who I think is just as good as Derrick Henry in terms of level of player at their position, you still ran the ball a ton. So if I'm a Ramondre Stevenson owner in Dynasty, I'm happy because he should see the bulk of it. I just worry that he won't be able to bring in, and can he recruit free agents? Are free agents going to go, yeah, let me sign up for a Mike Vrabel offense? Is T. Higgins going to go, yes, this is the guy I want to play for? Or does T. Higgins go, nah, I'm good, I'll go elsewhere? Is a Chris Godwin a player who's like, yeah, I want to go play for Mike Vrabel? I get it, he's a player's coach. I just don't know. I don't know if he can sell and be that, again, leader of men who can plead his case and make his case that this is where they should go and this is what's best for their future. I worry for the Patriots. I worry for Drake May. Other coaching news, Dallas let go. They denied the Bears' request to interview Mike McCarthy, and then a couple days later, part ways with Mike McCarthy. I don't understand what Jerry Jones and the Cowboys are doing. And if anybody does, please drop it in the chat and explain it to me because I don't get it. What it seems to me like Jerry Jones is constantly playing chicken in contract negotiations. Did it with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. Wow, this is what we're paying you. This is where we're at. You want this? I'm not budging. And assuming that the player budges, and the player never does. And then 12th hour, they get it done. It seemed like that was the case with McCarthy. No, we're not going to let you interview the Bears. We're going to get a job done. We're going to get a deal done, but this is what we want to do. And Mike McCarthy said, nope. And I think Jerry Jones was playing chick with them, like, oh, he's going to balk. He's going to balk. He's going to go right back to us. We're the Cowboys. And Mike McCarthy said, nope. And he walked. They're so late in the process. They've obviously missed out on Vrabel. I think they've missed out on the window to interview Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn until their season's done. So at least Monday at the earliest, if they lose. They are behind the 8 ball a week or two. So what does that mean? Is it a case where they had something in place with Dion? Possibly. I've said for the longest time I thought Dion gets a coaching job wherever Shador goes, and I've said that was the Giants. Giants are keeping Daboll, so maybe that's the Jets. Maybe now it's the Cowboys, and they trade up to get the pick. I don't know. Or is it more likely that the Cowboys are just poorly run by Jerry Jones, and this is what happens with Jerry Jones? That's where I'm leaning. That Jerry Jones just doesn't really have a plan and is now grasping at straws. It seems like he's reached out to Dion, and Dion has kind of said, "Now I'm good, man. Unless you pay me a ton of money." The Cowboys are turning into a poorly owned franchise very, very quickly. I mean, Jerry Jones has always been, I think 5-10 years ago he was really good, but I think it started to go downhill, and I think he's just gone downhill really quick. And it's just detrimental to that franchise. Which, hey, I hate the Cowboys, so I'm all for it. It sucks for football because I don't want teams to be chronically bad. I don't want the Jets. I don't want the Browns. I don't want the Panthers. I want every team to have at least a shot. Now, granted, you always have the teams, and most of the teams that are bad I hate anyway. So I hate the Jets. I hate the Cowboys. Browns, I don't care. Panthers, I don't care. I kind of like the Panthers a little bit. It just seems to me that that's where the Cowboys are headed. So we'll see what happens in these coaching hires. We still have the Bears out there. The Jets are looking for a guy. Saints are looking for a guy. Now the Cowboys are looking for a guy. There's another spot. We'll see what happens. Does Ben Johnson get a job? Does Aaron Glenn get a job? Do they want jobs? Not obviously they want to be head coaches, but do they want to leave Detroit if Detroit doesn't win the Super Bowl? I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit comes up short and it's one of those bad bounces, bad blown call type thing where it's like, hey, this was ours and we kind of got gypped out of it. If they go out and get beat, I think they leave. But if they go out and, a missed PI or, a guy fumbles, at the 10 and the guy takes it back and, and they lose that way. And I think Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson go, man, we had it. We have it. We had a bad bounce. I don't think it's out of the realm possibility that they come back. Let's run it back one more year. Let's do it. Detrimental to their future, possibly. I mean, we saw with Bobby Slowick, who was a top candidate last year, decided to stay in Houston, and now is not even in the coaching candidate carousel right now. Like, his name is not even being talked about, who was a top coordinator last year. How many jobs are open next year? It seems like there's 5 or 6. I mean, let's face it, next year, is it going to be Kevin Stefanski, Mike Tomlin, Todd Bowles? Like, I don't know where is it Mike McDaniel in Miami? I mean, yeah, there's probably going to be 5 or 6 jobs every year that open up. So I don't think the supply and demand for coaching is going to go away. It's just a matter of if they have a bad year, right? Goff gets injured next year and Ben Johnson doesn't have the playmakers, his stock goes down. So I don't think it's out of question. If I had to put percentages on, I would say it's 60% likely that both of them leave. No. I would say it's probably 70% likely. No, 60% likely they both leave. I think there's probably a 30% chance that one of them leaves, and I think it's probably a 10% chance that neither of them leaves. I think that's 100%. 60, 30, 10. Yep. I would love to see them win it and then run it back. I would love to see them stay and run it back either way, because I think they have a great thing going. Dan Campbell is and I've said this before about Dan Campbell, I think he's a good motivator and a good leader of men, not a great necessarily X's and O's coach. I don't think Dan Campbell, if he loses Ben Johnson, especially Ben Johnson, will have the same output that he has right now. At some point, going for it on 4th down is going to cost you a game. It cost you a game last year in the playoffs. That riskiness is going to catch up. I think he's done a lot. What everybody says about Mike Vrabel is that, oh, he got the best out of limited talent. I think Dan Campbell's getting a lot out of really good talent, and I think they're overachieving a little bit. He's getting a lot out of them. He's a guy that you listen to and you want to run through a wall for. I just don't know when it comes to the X's and O's and play calling and the stuff of real football minded stuff, if he's really a great coach. I think he's an okay coach. I think he's surrounded himself with really good talent. And he's also had the job security with the GM and with the ownership that he can be a little more risky. He can go for it on 4th down because he knows he's not going to get fired. He knows he has this year, next year to figure it out. I think that's where I'm at with Dan Campbell. Let's talk about Mike Tomlin. Should the Steelers fire Mike Tomlin? Yes. I think it is time to move on from Mike Tomlin. I think Mike Tomlin is in the Vrabel's camp of he's good enough to make you okay. He's a good enough coach to make you 9-8 every year. He just is. But I don't think he's a good enough coach to get you to 10, 11 wins and win a Super Bowl. I think he used to be. I just don't think Mike Tomlin has evolved enough. He doesn't have the players. And that's the thing. He's good enough where you're never going to get the players. You're good enough where you're never going to be in a top 5 pick. You're never going to be a top 10 pick. You're always going to be in the low teens because you made the playoffs or the 20s. And you're going to hope you can hit on a 2nd or 3rd round guy. You're hoping you find a Puka Nuku. And I just don't know if the team does it. I don't know if he's modern enough in his approach to those things to find those players. If I'm the owner if I'm the owner of the Steelers, I part ways with him and the GM and I start from scratch. I would have done it right after this, last week after they lost and said, hey, it's time to move on and try to get a Ben Johnson or Liam Cohen or something along that and a GM that fits and revamp and go, hey, we need to modernize the Steelers. The Steelers are always going to be they've been the Steelers of this ground and pounds, old school AFC North football. That's just not football anymore. Like, it is football. It's just not where the game is going. The game is going to these high-powered passing attacks, and let's face it, Russell Wilson to George Pickens isn't it. Najee Harris isn't it. I think Jalen Warren can be, but he's got to stay healthy, right? We've seen it where you need a guy who can pass catch and be a Bucky Irving type guy. I think Mike Tomlin, if he were to get fired, I think he gets picked up for sure. I think there's teams out there that would love to have a coach. There's teams out there, the Jets would love to have Mike Tomlin because they haven't made the playoffs in forever. They have the longest drought. But again, it's a safe hire, not it's not an exciting over the hump hire. It's Tomlin, Mike Vrabel are these hires of good, not great, and they're enough to make us mediocre, but never be spectacular. We might make it far if things break our way, right? If there's an injury or the balance of the ball or the interception, the tip goes our way, we might make it similar far, but You're never going to hear about a Mike Tomlin team being Super Bowl favorites. You're never going to hear about a Mike Vrabel team being Super Bowl favorites. They're just not. They're not. They're not the offense that the league runs on. They're not the defense that the league runs on. It's just not who they are. You'll have them talking about, yeah, they're probably you hear same thing. Same thing with Pittsburgh. Yeah, they're probably a wild card team. They should be decent. Okay, they'll be Pittsburgh. It's going to be that way for the next however long as Tomlin there. New England's going to be that way. Yeah, they're going to be good. Maybe they make a wild card. Maybe they go 3-3 in their division. That's what you're going to hear. You're never going to hear, yeah, they have a chance to win the division. It's just not what those guys do. I mean, Tennessee won the division in a weak division with Colts and Texans. And Jacksonville, just horrible. That was a horrible division for the longest time. So I do think the Steelers need to move on from Mike Tomlin. It's hard because that's not who the Steelers are. He's like only their third coach in history. It's hard for them to go, hey, we're firing the coach because they've done. I mean, they would need Tomlin to retire. Tomlin can't be. Tomlin has a no trade clause, so he's not going to want to be traded. So I think unless Tomlin wants to retire, I think they're kind of stuck with him because they can't move on from an institution there in Pittsburgh. A couple people have said like he's got a lot of sway there. Like he's not the GM, but he might as well be. Like he's been there so long that he is the Pittsburgh Steelers. As much as Bill Cowher was the Pittsburgh Steelers, so is Mike Tomlin. He's the longest tenured coach in the league for a reason. He is them. Tomlin is a Steeler. I can't imagine Mike Tomlin coaching anywhere else. And so if you move on from him, he's going to want to coach. And it's probably just not the best thing. Because, right, if Tomlin goes somewhere and let's say Tomlin goes to the Jets and turns them into a playoff team and they win a couple playoff games, then you're like, oh, wow, we made a mistake. Again, he'll get the most out of what he's got, but he's never going to be get you over the hump type guy. So, well, guys, this has been about 40 minutes of A.M.A. Haven't got any questions, which is fine. If you have been watching, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I know I got a couple people watching there. Love hearing to you guys. We got a great guest next week. Toronto Dave will be talking all things about counseling and how that's been really helpful for him. Sorry we didn't have a guest tonight. Again, life happens with people and have to change last minute. But appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're watching, hit that like and subscribe. It really does help us grow the channel, help us reach more people, and does help us grow and maybe get some better guests on here the bigger we get. Love to hear chat. You can always drop a comment after the fact. I try to check these comments every day. You can hit me up on Twitter at the DUnit13. Love to tell you guys there. Check out the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. It's a great social platform if you're looking for football advice. And enjoy the football games. We only got 3 more weeks of football. We got divisional round, championship round. We got a week off, and then Super Bowl. So football will be gone before we know it, guys. And so enjoy these games. Enjoy watching your team. Root for people. Root for your friends' teams. I have friends that are Eagles fans, and I have friends that are Rams fans. Be excited for them if your team's not in it or your team loses. But enjoy football while we have it because we're all going to miss it come February. And I will see you guys next week.